So this Honda made 959 foot-pounds of torque. Our next one up, 8th gen Civic Si Supercharged, running on E67, and he's all the way from Minnesota. A 7-hour drive, roughly. And in this one, I'm going to do some, we're going to talk about some dyno sheets and some data logs. So if you're interested in that stuff, you'll like this video. So I'm doing a once-over right now. Car is clearly strapped onto the dyno. And you can see my tack signal is all hooked up. And just little things right now that I'm seeing that I do have notes on that he will get. The injector adapters. Don't like them. Discussed it many of times. They've been known to cause misfires. Misfires that you can barely even notice. And if it happens up on the very top end, could be game over. The other thing that I am noting is the main ECU ground, which normally will go here, and Honda actually will recommend to put it there, because what's happening is you're grounding it to the stud, and the stud goes in the block. If you were just grounding it to the valve cover, well, there is a gasket that is in between that will cause, I don't want to say an improper ground, but you can always have a better ground. He has his ground over here, which the problem is, it's on a thermostat housing, or I'm sorry, not a thermostat housing, a coolant housing. And how do you think that's sealed off to the block? Some type of gasket. So, there you go. So there's some type of gasket, whether it be rubber, whether it be Honda Bond, that you're not fully grounding it out. You know, is it gonna work? I'm sure it can. Can you have a better ground? Yes, that's what I'm trying to get across. You always want, when it comes to electrical, you always want it to be 100%. And you don't want to, at least for me, I don't want to have any doubts. So those are the two things I see so far. Doing a little check over too. I see a lot of cars coming with battery terminals that are loose. These are tight, so we're good on that. I'm gonna build the tune for it and get started. I'll be back. So everything is looking good. I have the windows right now rolled up. It is a little hot, in case you can kind of see the sweat building up on me. As I said before, what I am doing is I am crawling before I am walking. I'm making sure the tune that I built for it looks good. Air fuels look good. And I'm going to slowly get into VTEC. I spend a good quality time into partial throttle, cruising, and basically, you know, I get so many, I'm trying to situate myself, I get so many emails, messages, phone calls, whatever it is, you know, hey, I got tuned elsewhere, but I'm having an issue. Partial throttle's horrible, I can't drive it or idle, whatever. Wide open throttle seems fine, but it seems like they didn't even tune for partial. Well, it's because I have seen other tuners where they don't care about partial throttle. They're all about doing a wide open throttle pull, making sure the wide open throttle part is good, printing up a dyno sheet, and sending you on your way. You know, when I talk to some people, some customers, and they're like, I ask them, how long did your other tune take at the other place? Oh, about an hour and a half. You cannot get a good quality tune and go over everything in an hour or an hour and a half. It's that simple. They loaded up a previous tune that they had, saved, wide open throttle looks good, send it on your way. What I'm going to get into too here is not only looking over some data logs, also dyno sheets. I've said it before, we have done tests where guys will come here, get tuned, go to dyno days elsewhere, and our dyno consistently reads 11% lower. That doesn't mean you're making 11% lower horsepower. It just means our dyno is either reading accurate or the other dyno you're on is a high reading dyno. It's that simple. And there's some stuff that you cannot fake. You cannot, data logs you can't lie about. So if you ever see where a car's on a dyno somewhere else and, you know, they made incredible power, start breaking down the setup you can kind of realize like, hey man, that dyno reads high. Now it's going to be hard for maybe the average person because they're not doing this day in and day out and they're not sitting on a dyno. But as a dyno tuner that does it, you know, it's a lot of red flags. And I'll say this guy's from Minnesota, 7 hours away. He came here for a reason. We get a lot of guys that will get tuned here and a buddy will get tuned elsewhere. They'll make the same power and then we'll hear the feedback. I raced my buddy at the track or wherever I raced him. We're making the same power. He was tuned elsewhere, and I put bus links on him. Then usually what happens is the buddy will call here, and then they'll start asking questions. And hey, man, I'm curious why did my buddy beat me, but we're making the same power? And then ultimately their car will come here. We'll put it on the dyno. We can get a baseline. If we can get a baseline run on it, if I don't know how the tune is and whatnot, I don't risk it. And then sure enough, I show them, it's like, this is what your power is. This is why your buddy beat you. You're not making the power that was claimed. There's so many, and this is also why I don't post dyno numbers. Dyno numbers really don't mean anything. They might mean something to the average person, but they can be manipulated very easily on certain dynos. We have a dyno jet. It's you can't really manipulate it. It can either read high or low. We've talked to Dyno Jet before about ours reading how it reads, and they said that's just how it is. You know, you can let your customers know, and you have to understand the dyno is a big tool. It's for us to calibrate the car safely in a safe environment. With that being said, now I'm going to get into it. I'm going to do a wide open throttle pull, see how everything looks. I'm going to finish up the tune, but I'm going to come back and I'm going to show you guys a little bit about the dyno sheets, and I'll even show you about the white S2000 that was on the dyno. I'm going to show you that one pull that I did and how much torque it made, and you'll be shocked by it and stunned. So I'm going to finish this up and I'll be back. So I did mention earlier in the video that he was on E67. Well, it's actually reading 72%. Everything's going so far good with the tune. Getting into VTEC is good. Did a wide open throttle pull, stopped short. Everything's looking good. So, gonna get some more video for you guys, and I will be back. So prior to driving down here, the customer was asking me about these injectors and if I felt like they were going to be good enough for his power goals. Now, this is all going to go hand in hand, and since I'm in the car, I'm showing you the data log first, but what I want to show you guys afterwards, I'm going to show you some dyno sheets here. So, as I said, with data logs, you can never really lie about what's going on, and, you know, if this guy was making 700 horsepower on 1,000 cc's, well, you can assume or speculate that, well, something is obviously wrong because you're not going to make that. So right now his injector duty cycle is nearing max. He was telling me before in an email it was 100% that he was hitting. Right now it's at 95%, so I don't know on the previous tune what he was on. Clearly I got the duty cycle a little bit lower, but it I never personally want to go over 80% duty cycle. That's a whole nother story on its own, and you can see how it wants to go lean. It's leaning up a little bit, and don't go off of this air fuel as much because I go off my dyno wideband, my dyno air fuel sensor. It's the Honda, I'm sorry, the OEM O2 sensor. They're known to read a little bit richer. So on my actual dyno sheet, we're seeing 12s up top. Now, since he's on an E67 blend, you can run it a little bit leaner. as if you're on straight like 93 pump gas. But it's still something, you know, my whole thing is really quick with the injector info. When your duty cycle becomes so high to a point, you can actually cause the injectors not to want to function like they should. So they're almost at the end of that cliff, and if you reach that point, you can get an injector that's actually going to stick open or closed, which is never a good thing, especially at the higher RPM. So, but you know, once again, I'm just showing you a little bit of insight on duty cycle, and there's so many fuel injector calculators out there. If you put injector info in there and your setup info, you know, it's going to tell you roughly how much you can make. And once again, that's one of those things that if I said this car was making, you know, 700 horsepower on 1,000cc injectors on an E67 blend, an average Joe that has no clue what he's looking at or talking about, he might actually believe it. You know, but this is just where I'm saying you can't lie about a data log. So if you see, you know, another shop making amazing power, or you know, think a little bit more. That's what I'm trying to get you guys to do, is open that brain up a little bit more and just think, and just don't, I said it before, and what I was going to say is just don't, you know, oh, okay, that's what he's saying. Use your brain, educate yourself, and that's what I'm trying to do right here. You know, knowledge is power. It's key. And that's the whole thing, too, on these videos of why I don't constantly post dyno numbers, because they really don't mean much. So I just want to show you guys when you take your time, and as I'm saying, how guys will just flash a tune, it'll be like an hour dyno tune. When you take your time, you go over every fine detail. This might not look like a lot, but look as you scroll up. Of course, what's happening is more power is starting to come out. So, you know, down below, yeah, maybe not that much, but look what's happening. And as we go higher and higher, we're going to gain more power. And the same thing, if I get rid of this and I go to torque, the same exact thing is happening. Might not seem like a lot down low, but look what you're seeing up top. So this Honda made 959 foot-pounds of torque, but it didn't. So what I'm trying to get at too is, of course, you could see the torque spiking. It was, the dyno did not want to read correctly. Sometimes you can get a little spike in horsepower, and that's when you will see guys will just press print and, you know, shoot the old picture or video of just this number. I mean, we could say that the S2000 made 959 foot-pounds of torque, but, well, clearly you're gonna know that it didn't. And, you know, so hopefully you guys get my point of what I'm trying to say here, and hopefully you can educate yourself. And give me a second. Now, I already have the next car loaded onto the dyno. Took care of what I needed to do. Now, I want to make it clear, I'm not bad-mouthing anybody. If you go back and look at my videos, my biggest thing is about educating people. We get guys that will call up here looking for prices and then say, hey, I want to shop around. That's perfectly fine. Do your homework. Educate yourself. Look at what the owner or the tuner is preaching. See what he is. See what he's about. Come in and talk to him. We've been in business now for 23 years. You know, I tell people, go look at our reviews. Go look at, you know, and some of them are super heartfelt. I talked to the guy, and he said he watches my videos. I believe his son does too, because he said he was going to tell his son. And, you know, that's one of the reasons he came down. What I preach in my videos is years of experience. What I want to pass on to you guys. And as I said, you're not going to see me in videos promoting something in my hand and, hey, say, go buy this. Go buy this product. Use a 10% coupon code if you mention my name. It's not about that. It truly isn't. And when I got back into this thing 23 years ago, roughly, give or take, maybe even a little bit longer, it was about helping your fellow man or your fellow woman. I don't know, whatever it is. I don't want to, you know, nowadays. That's how I was raised. That's how I was brought up from my parents. And it goes a long way. So hopefully you get what I'm trying to say. As I said too at the beginning of this little clip, I'm not trying to badmouth anybody. Um, you know, we hear so many stories as it is, and we put on our blinders. We got so much work, and as I tell my guys, just keep doing what you're doing, and good things will happen. And also at the same time, I'm going to say this: nobody's perfect. It's how somebody handles something when something goes wrong, or you know, if we get a phone call after a long engine swap that we've done, or a big engine swap, and hey man, one of my coolant clamps is loose and it was leaking. Okay, well, we didn't catch it, or we didn't tighten it enough and it loosened up a little bit. Bring it back in, we'll take care of you. And I've been known where if a guy has to drive a distance, I'll toss him a gift card or say, here man, you know, go take your wife or girlfriend or boyfriend out. You know, I apologize, and it is what it is. So biggest thing that I'm trying to get the point across here is educate yourself. Educate. Don't just listen to what people are preaching, and you know, do your homework on anything. I had to fix my dishwasher a couple weeks ago or so. You know, do your homework on the stuff.